Hello my friends, I've been using Panasonic S1R2 for about 5 months and I have quite a lot to say about it, which means that it is time for an updated video. The S1R2 is Panasonic's versatile, high-resolution, yet very hybrid camera. I've also waited for the release of the S1 II before I made this video because I hope that now everybody can understand that the S1R2 is not supposed to compete with everything from Z6 III to A1 II and that it is not supposed to have a 6 millisecond rolling shutter. In this video I would like to share my long-term experiences with the S1R2, talk about a rather significant firmware update, and also kind of explain what it actually is and who should consider getting one. The first thing that I would like to talk about is the ergonomy and the user experience of the S1R2. As I've explained in my original review, the S1R2 and now also the S1 II are the only cameras on the market that fulfill all of my requirements in terms of the body design and ergonomy. First of all, it retains the very compact size of the S5 II. It is well made, it has nice texture on the grip, and it has also proven to be exceptionally durable in harsh weather. The addition of the hybrid tilting and rotating screen and photo/video switch have made the user experience pretty much flawless for me personally. I will talk more about that later on. Probably the most interesting part of the S1R2 is the new sensor. Some say that it is the IMX366, but that will never be officially confirmed or denied. Nevertheless, it is a 44 megapixel full-frame backside illuminated sensor. This S1R2 is primarily a high-resolution special, meaning that the stills output should be the most important thing in this category, so let's start with that. 44 megapixels is a resolution that allows the S1R2 to capture a great amount of detail, especially in the absence of a low-pass filter. I've switched to 44 megapixel S1R2 from 61 megapixel A7R4, and personally I don't miss that extra resolution. You can still get an immense amount of detail sufficient for large format fine art printing and 8K digital publishing, so that won't be an issue. An important part of the image quality is also the dynamic range, which is excellent. It is actually a little bit better than with Sony's high-resolution cameras, for example, thanks to the lower base ISO, which is 80. Uncompromised dynamic range is one of the major advantages of the S1R2 in comparison to cameras with a stacked sensor. The overall output quality of stacked sensors is getting better, but if you want the best possible image quality, including the dynamic range, a non-stacked sensor is still way to go. The overall output quality of stacked sensors is getting better, but if you want the best possible image quality, including the dynamic range, a non-stacked sensor is still the way to go. I've recently taken the S1R2 on a trip to Iceland, where it has proven to be an excellent high-resolution landscape camera. The stills output is very refined in every way. The automatic exposure works great and the white balance is always on point. The colors and the contrast in the RAWs are the most neutral that I've seen so far from Panasonic, and that is the way that I personally prefer it. The RAWs offer ample room for post-production, so having the most accurate colors as the starting point makes the most sense to me, and that is the case with the S1R2. The readout speed of this sensor has caused quite a lot of confusion on the internet. First of all, the S1R2 is by far the fastest non-stacked high-resolution camera on the market. It can shoot 40 frames per second, although with one caveat, and it can go down to 20 millisecond rolling shutter in some modes, which is better than with current generation of non-stacked 24 megapixel sensors. That speed has been a bit of a double-edged sword for the S1R2 because people started to compare it with cameras with stacked sensors. The rolling shutter, which has never even been a major topic with high-resolution non-stacked cameras, also became a major talking point with the S1R2. Much like the stacked sensor cameras can't compete with the S1R2 in terms of the dynamic range and price, the S1R2 can't quite compete with stacked cameras in terms of speed. And that is completely fine because it was never supposed to compete with them. That is highlighted by the fact that the buffer in the S1R2 only takes about 68 RAWs at that 40 frames per second speed, which is again completely fine for a high-resolution, image quality first camera. The overall speed and importantly overheating resistance will also greatly depend on your choice of storage. I've been using the S1R2 with a brand new Pairgear CFExpress Type B 4.0 512GB card, and it worked great in terms of both speed and overheating resistance, but more on that later. That also brings us to the first major feature of the firmware update, which is the possibility to copy or backup files from a memory card to SSD connected via USB-C. I have already shown this feature with the S1 II, so now it is also available with the S1R2, and it works great on both cameras unless you run into some compatibility issues. I have tested it with CFExpress cards from 3 brands and also with SSDs from 3 brands, and everything worked great and very fast. I'm also very happy with the autofocus in both stills and video. Refocusing from close distance to infinity is something that pretty much all manufacturers can get right nowadays, and it is as confident as it gets with no hunting, even in very difficult conditions such as with backlit subjects. The tracking is the real challenge, and the S1R2 is also very good at that. First of all, I test tracking a subject, myself, walking towards the camera, which is a much more difficult task than tracking a subject running across the frame. I've also done some new testing with a 24-60mm f2.8, which has an extremely fast dual-mode linear motor, and I was able to get 100% hit rate at f2.8 even when I walked towards the camera at a much higher pace than usually. Regarding the video, the biggest development is the possibility to shoot 8.1K and 7.2K OpenGate video. The 8.1K mode uses full horizontal resolution of the sensor, so 8128 pixels in 17:9 aspect ratio. The image quality in terms of detail that you can get this way is pretty incredible as expected. 7.2K is the new OpenGate resolution, meaning 3:2 aspect ratio. This is especially useful with another addition added by the firmware update, which are the new frame markers or guides, and importantly an option to use up to 3 of them with different colors and aspect ratios at the same time. It seems that more commercial videographers need to shoot both vertical and horizontal footage at the same time than not, and this feature can be a huge help in those situations. Probably the main video highlight of the S1R2 are the 8K capabilities. 8K video is currently in a phase where prosumers and some professionals are trying the creative possibilities that it offers, and I would say that the S1R2 is one of the best DSLMs for experimenting with 8K. It shoots 8K in a very user-friendly 300 megabits per second HEVC format, which won't munch through your storage too quickly and can be pretty easily handled by Apple Silicon machines. The 8K video quality is great, and as an 8K enthusiast, I intend to do some 8K projects in the near future. Other than the 8K, it is also the most capable video camera among high-resolution specials. It shoots beautiful fully downsampled 4K, it can shoot 4K 60p with a minor 1.1x crop, and even 4K 120p with 1.24x crop. It can output great video straight out of the camera with very nice colors if you use something like the natural picture style. Despite that the YouTube reviews are all about the log nowadays, more people are statistically still interested in straight out of the camera footage, and the S1R2 can certainly deliver on that front. Regarding the log, there has also been a big development here, and that is the introduction of ARRI log, which can be activated via software key. I only have one key for now, and I have used it for the S1 II, so I haven't tried it on the S1R2 yet. The colors are quite different between the C-Log and the V-Log, and the biggest difference for me personally are the skin tones, but I will talk more about that in my S1 II long-term review. C-Log also gives you an option to use ARRI's LUT library, which is pretty great, so I'm really glad that this option is available, and I will definitely explore it more in the future. Regarding the rolling shutter, as I mentioned, it can go down to 20 milliseconds in 4K 25p, which is frankly a great achievement for a non-stacked high-resolution camera and completely fine for the vast majority of scenes. It is worse in 8K, and how bad will it get obviously depends on the scene and the camera movement, but in reality the scenes where the rolling shutter might ruin your footage are much less common than the YouTube reviewers might make you think. Also, the audience cares much less about the skew lines than the filmmakers. Regarding the overheating resistance, I have done some tests at 27 degrees Celsius ambient temperature. At 4K 25p with Auto 2 fan setting, I was able to drain the whole battery. A temperature warning appeared after about 30 minutes, but it wasn't even warm to touch. The fan turned on after about 40 minutes, but I have to be within centimeters from the camera to hear it. At 4K 50p, I was able to get 28 minutes and 50 seconds, which is in my opinion an excellent result at 27 degrees. At 21 degrees with some light airflow, I was again able to drain the whole battery. With 5.8K ProRes HQ at 3.5 gigabits per second, I was able to fill the whole 512 GB CFExpress card in 19 minutes and 18 seconds, long before the camera was even warm, so I guess that if you shoot ProRes HQ, you will be limited by the storage rather than the temperature. Importantly, I have done these tests with that Gear Type B 4.0 CFExpress 512 GB card, which was remarkably not super hot after the tests. If you use a battery grip or an external SSD, you can get pretty much unlimited recording times in all modes. Overall, I can say that the S1R2 is a great video camera, especially for a high-resolution special, and it can certainly be described as a hybrid camera. Another very strong point is the stabilization. Nothing has really changed in that regard. All of my comments from the S1R2 and S1 II reviews still stands. It is great for stills, where you can go very low with the shutter speed and utilize that base ISO for maximal dynamic range without losing the detail. It is great for stills, where you can go very low with the shutter speed and utilize that base ISO for maximal dynamic range without losing detail. It is also a great help for macro photography with 100mm f2.8, which is one of my favorite Lumix lenses. It also works great for static shots in video, up to about 100mm is completely fine, but the biggest highlight for me is still that cropless digital stabilization mode. I've been saying that the hybrid stabilization is the future for many years, and the cropless mode really offers an action camera level of stabilization in a DSLM. To my surprise, it is also very predictable with minimal amount of lag. Other electronic image stabilization modes also work great, and in combination with that excellent IBIS, it definitely offers a new level of creative options. I've also talked about the handling extensively in both S2 reviews, so here I will just repeat that in my opinion it is the best handling of all cameras on the market. As far as I know, the S1R2 and the S1 II are the only two cameras on the market that combine compact size, 3-command dials, dedicated stills and video switch, autofocus mode selector, dry mode dial, tilting monitor, and an integrated strap mounts. If you are aware of another camera that fulfills these requirements, please let me know in the comment section. A 3.2-inch display with high resolution would be nice though. 3-inch 1.84 million dot panel is completely fine, but that is a possible point for improvement in terms of the overall user experience. 5.44 million dot EVF is also completely fine. Here I don't really need a high resolution. Managing the user experience in the latest high-end cameras is becoming quite difficult. With the amount of options and settings available in cameras such as the S1R2, something will inevitably have to be buried in the deeper sections. Panasonic is managing it pretty well, although with some new features such as the SSD Backup, which is located in the playback menu, you need to know where to look for them. One of my favorite features in the menu is the option to configure recording quality My Menu List, which is in my opinion a necessity with the amount of options available after the firmware update. Regarding the battery life, it is good considering the amount of features and all of the processes that are going on. It is actually quite difficult to judge the battery life because 1. Battery percentage is unfortunately not available, and 2. It greatly depends on the specific usage. For stills, it can last a full day of typical travel photography, but when you start using wireless features, and if you take 8K clips and so on, you can also go through a couple of batteries rather quickly. I also have the BGE2 battery grip, which works with the S1R2, but I mostly use it with the S1 II, which is my primary video camera. It is a very good battery grip, it doubles the battery life, and it also helps with overheating in the most demanding conditions and settings, but I will talk more about that in a separate video. The Lumix Flow app has also been updated and now it can work over the Wi-Fi, but I will make a separate video about Panasonic's Lumix Lab and Lumix Flow apps and about my workflow with Lumix cameras and Luminar Mobile. Now in mid-2025, I can confidently say that the lens selection is definitely not a weakness of the L-mount system. Panasonic covers all of the basics. They have the new 24-60mm f2.8 that I have recently reviewed, and also some of more niche lenses such as the excellent 100mm f2.8 macro. Even if there were no Panasonic L-mount lenses, Sigma still covers basically everything. That includes exotic lenses such as 14mm f1.4 or 300-600mm f4. The I-series lenses are also a great option if you want something more compact. Smaller brands such as Mikey or 7 Artisans are now also getting into the L-mount system, so the future seems to be bright for the L-mount in this regard. To sum up, the overall evaluation of the S1R2 on the internet will always depend on the perspective. If I review it as a high-resolution landscape and portrait camera, a competitor to the A7R5 and the Z7 II, which is in my opinion the most correct perspective, there is very little if anything that I can complain about. It offers great 44MP stills resolution with outstanding dynamic range, excellent autofocus, great handling, and now also one of the best lens selections within the L-mount system. If I review it as an all-round high-end hybrid camera, it still fares very well. For a non-stacked high-resolution camera dedicated to provide the best output quality possible, it also offers very solid speed. The video qualities in terms of 4K, 8K, open gate, log shooting, or even high frame rates are again the best ever with non-stacked high-resolution camera. The rolling shutter performance is completely fine in my opinion. If I review it as a competitor to cameras with stacked sensor, which is in my opinion a misleading way to review the S1R2, it obviously won't be able to compete in terms of the speed and the rolling shutter. On the other hand, the stacked cameras won't be able to compete in terms of the overall image quality. To determine the winner in that case is simply a matter of priorities. Personally, as a previous user of Sony A7R 3, 4 and 5, I am very happy with the S1R2. I think that it is by far the most versatile high-resolution image quality special on the market with great hybrid capabilities. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.